All right. Well, how are we feeling about Michigan State, man? 11-point favorites. Honestly, Michigan State, high-level overview, offense, Hayden Chiles, has been getting some momentum. Defensively, however, Michigan State is very, very, very flawed. And
Yes.
I think that's where Nebraska can have success. But I want to run through it a little bit by bit. And we'll start kind of at the top. But overall, I want to get a quick recap of the Big Ten games and how you're feeling about the schedule, how it lays out. How do you feel about the schedule and how it's kind of laid out versus what Nebraska's played, how Nebraska's played, and how the rest of the schedule is played?
I'm still pretty confident that this is going to be a good year, despite the issues on the offensive line and the defensive line. I kind of made a snap reaction to the depth chart, which I probably should have thought about it when they're not going to announce all the position changes or who's starting that wasn't prior. So I imagine there has to be shakeup come Saturday. There is zero reason there won't be shakeup, in my opinion. So I'm curious to see what they did. It's obviously going to be at the tackle spots, and I think they'll be decent. But I think even though you don't have great lines, you can still win 8, 9, potentially 10 games because you have a lethal passing offense. You have weapons outside. You just got to get the ball out quick and be able to buy time when you need time. And then defensively, you can hopefully with your linebackers have better run fits with your safeties. Now that Malcolm Hartzog's probably going to be out for, I think they're cautiously optimistic that he'll be back by November. It's potentially that he's gone for the rest of the year. So who steps up in his place and can they fill that role? So, there is definitely deficiencies, but I'm still confident based on what we have ahead of us that 8, 9, 10 wins is still on the table.
Yeah, I think it's very important for the secondary in this game especially because kind of like you're talking about, they've been kind of a strong point of this team so far. So with the issues on the defensive line, one of the biggest things that we can do to kind of counteract that is make sure secondary plays up to par. And so far, we've been excited with those so far. But yeah, that's not the ideal injury that we wanted to have there, especially with how he was playing going in so far this season. Now, when listening to Holgorsen talk about the running back position, looks like he's going to roll out surprises, so to speak, or something.
Vince Giannatone.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way. Kind of feel that way too. I also saw people saying Elijah Pritchett, a running back. I don't think Elijah Pritchett is going to be a running back.
No, I don't think so. He's athletic though.
He is. He's very athletic. Go into a little bit. Nebraska averaging 43.5 points per game with opponent 13.5. Total offense 14.07 over the 4 games. 152 pass attempts, 118 completions, 1 interception, 12 touchdowns. So you got a good touchdown interception ratio from both quarterbacks. Hayden Chiles has been throwing the ball fairly well, rushing 579 yards on 138 attempts, 4.2 yards per rush. Now, this one, of course, is naturally going to come down to the battle of Chiles versus Raiola. I think this is going to be very, very important for our run game to get off to an early start. I just think and I know Holgorsen mentioned talking about we're only going to do the plays that work. And did you see that clip of him saying that?
I did not. I was at work all day, but I was trying to read some of his comments earlier.
Something about something along the lines of we're not going to run the plays for the sake of running plays. We're going to run the plays that are the most successful. We're going to run the plays that works. And I mean, this is nothing new. Like typically, offensively, you're going to roll out there the plays that work more often than not in practice with the guys that it works more often than not in practice with. And so this is nothing new in terms of that philosophy goes. But I think there might just be some wrinkles that we haven't seen yet that he's going to roll out there this week. Specifically, for Michigan State, we've seen a lot of the base air raid with the high tempo, some of the spacing, the quick reads. But I think we're going to see a little bit of more motion zone runs, counters. And I think this game more than any, I'm hoping they're coming out with a level of physicality to kind of respond to the loss. I think it's very, very important to come out and set the tone early because this is both teams are 3-1 here. This is a very, very important must-win game. I feel like for Nebraska and Michigan State, in a way, if their season goes the way that. Um, so Dylan Raiola, of course, I give him a much bigger advantage in terms of passing. Aiden Chiles a little bit more mobile. When it comes to running backs, Nebraska, of course, I feel like has the advantage. But one of the things that I will say is Michigan State is one of the better receiver cores that we've seen this year. Cincinnati, we talked about it coming into the Cincinnati game, that they were talented but new, right? A lot of fresh faces. And by the way, Cincinnati's favored, I think, against Iowa State, aren't they? If I saw that correctly,
They are favored, and
okay.
I'm not going to be shocked if they beat Iowa State. If I'm being honest,
I won't either. Did you see the Kansas game?
The Iowa State K-State game.
No, Cincinnati,
Ireland?
Kansas. Cincinnati,
Oh,
Kansas.
I did not, honestly.
Fourth and 10 with the game on the line, man, and Cincinnati clutched it up and ended up coming down and scoring on that drive and winning the game. So
and KU's a pretty decent team right now. I think I watched a few of their games. They look pretty decent.
Oh, they are. Really good quarterback play. And Cincinnati's been tearing it up. So I'm curious to see against a good Michigan State receiver core, how our defensive backs hold up in man coverage against some talented receivers. I'm really curious to see how that transpires on the tape. Just to kind of see, especially in man coverage, with some of these guys they got over on Michigan State's roster. I think what was I'm drawing a blank on his name. Oh my gosh, Amari Kelly.
Michigan. Okay,
Amari Kelly and Nick Marsh. Nick Marsh is probably I would say their top receiver right now. Nick Marsh is going to be a guy that it's going to be really interesting to see how we kind of cover him. And I think if we can keep Marsh kind of at bay and make them beat us with their other guys, I think we're in good shape. I don't think their running back room, we got of course, Emmett Johnson, I think is better than anything they have in their running back room. So that's why I think establishing the run early and is going to be very important because that'll keep the pass rush at bay. And I think as long as Dylan Raiola has time to throw, we're in good shape. And trick to that is just getting that run game going, getting that, the defensive ends on their heels, not letting them pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. And I think that's probably what we're going to come out and do early is trying to establish that run.
Nebraska has to establish a run because in their 2 games against Power 4 conference teams, they're averaging 2.2 yards per rush. Now, I don't know if that's sack adjusted or not, but that's terrible. Even if you take sacks out of it, if that number is including sacks and you take those out, it's probably not great. I would be curious to come back. So go ahead.
I think we got 4.2 per rush if my number here is correct.
After you take out sacks.
Yeah.
So that's okay at best. I think really like to be a rushing team that you have to respect that part of the offense. You want to be in that 4.8 to 5.3, 5.4, like at a minimum.
It's not consistent enough. That's the problem right now for sure. And albeit against, it hasn't been where it needs to be against, like Michigan, for instance, the good teams.
Emmett Johnson had 10 rushing yards in the second half against Michigan. After having 55. Yeah, he had 10 in the second half. He had 55 in the first half. Granted, probably 20 of those was on that first play of the game. So you're thinking, we don't have a great running game against Michigan, but at that point, you're like, you know what, it's good enough to get us through this game. And then it just disappeared in that second half, which was pretty disappointing. It almost felt like they just went full air raid, which I'm fine with. I don't care what offense you play, just win. That's all I care about.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah, because in terms of the running back room, hopefully we get to see a little bit more Mekhi this week. We talked about that last week, but hopefully we see him a little bit more involved. In terms of his overall PFF numbers, he looks good, in terms of pass blocking grade and all that stuff. So it seems like he's doing the dirty work but nobody's really established himself. So it'll be really interesting to see if somebody kind of established himself going forward in this running back room. And Also curious to see how Holgorsen deploys it.
I'll admit it's been a frustrating thing for me where we don't have a second running back based on
No.
how they're playing the position, and it's frustrating for me because you can't go a full season with Emma Johnson getting 20, 25 touches a game, and part of it too is there's not even like an attempt to really establish a second running back, in my opinion. Like it's very minimal touches that Isaiah was getting. It's very minimal what Makai was getting. And even with Isaiah, this is what drives me nuts even more is they don't have a damn clue what they're doing with Isaiah Mosey right now.
Yeah.
Like he's a running back one week, then they moved him to a wide receiver. Now he's back to running back. They say he's playing both positions. If you're playing two positions, you don't have one, in my opinion. Find a position and stick him to it. I don't care if he's a receiver or a running back, but the cross training constantly is you're losing valuable training reps at both positions. So now you're not getting quality development at either position because you're back and forth between rooms and meetings and practice reps. It drives me nuts.
And here's the thing with like a guy like a Deebo Samuel, which is what I think they're trying to do, because the 49ers positionless kind of offense that they like. Thing about a Deebo is he's out there at all times, right? He's able to be used as kind of a Swiss Army knife, or was used as when he was used in the way he was, because he was out there all the time, right? And he was constantly used in motions. He was put in the backfield, put everywhere, right? Right now with the limited amount that he's getting in terms of his touches, I don't think it's as creative as as a Deebo Samuel type of player. I think it's one of those. I think kind of like you said, we need to iron out a specific role. That way, at least he can get some reps and get some momentum rolling. And I think right now, this far in the season, I wish we would have had a little bit more of an established role for a lot of these guys. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at, because this is similar to the conversation we had last year, where it was kind of like the running back rotation really didn't make a lot of sense, all things considered. Even though last year with a little bit more clear cut RB2, but it's still kind of the similar conversation.
Do you remember Rule's first year in Ramir Johnson? How I believe maybe it was Frost last year. Can't remember. It's kind of blurring together, but they were like trying Ramir Johnson at receiver, and then they were doing the exact same thing what they're doing to Isaiah Mosey. And then that year, Ramir had no place on the team, and it sucks because he could have been good at either one, and then he just never found a position until the end of his career, really the last couple of weeks of his career. And maybe it works and I'm just an idiot, which is entirely possible because they're coaches for a reason, and I'm sitting here in my office doing a podcast. But I'm more of like, I would rather just have a guy and know where he's going to be every day.
I think it's easier to get momentum going that way. It's kind of like the old adage, if you have multiple quarterbacks, you have no quarterback, that type of thing. Some of these guys like to know their role, like to establish their role, and that way each week of preparation, they know what they're going to do on game week, but I think this week coming off the bye week, because we even heard talking about practices here. We even heard Holgorsen talk about he's never seen a team practice like this off a bye week, which is good. Like I do think this team is going to come out with an extra level of kind of. I think they're just going to be a little bit more fired up coming off of the loss than I think in previous seasons we've seen. Probably off of a loss, we see a little bit more of a lackadaisical approach. I think this week they're going to be a little bit more fired up than we've seen off a loss. So hopefully that's enough, and hopefully they can implement some stuff over the bye week that can kind of iron some of those things out as we get into Big Ten play. Hopefully some of this stuff they're wanting to test some things out over these first few weeks or whatever, and then implement that more so over the bye week. And I'm hoping that's what we see this week.
I would like for them to, if whoever their backup running back is, pick a guy and let him get some reps.
Yeah.
I feel like the Houston Christian game, especially that one, even the Akron game, where that was a good opportunity to let Emmett play a quarter or two and just rest him, because you needed to find a number two. And I feel like, I think it was Akron we played first, if my timeline's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So then that game they played Mackay and they played Mosey, and then against Houston Christian they played Quinton, and then they didn't play Mackay at all, and so you played those two games and you found out nothing about your running back room in the sense of who's 2 and who's 3, and then that was also when they're in the transition of putting Mosey at this hybrid role. So I feel like those two games for that purpose was kind of wasted.